Hello, Jackie at Spare Room Studio here with the second part of colouring this page in Story of Precious Cats. Nelco Neco or Nelco Neco. I'm sorry, I've got pen and colour all over my hands here, so I do apologise for that. Now, I had a sudden cut off of the last video, the part one of this video. Storage problems again with my phone, but what you missed was that I lifted off some colour here where it was very saturated. I used a clean damp brush and I lifted colour off with that brush and used it on other parts of the picture. I've put some purple in here just by using the pen, light purple, and pen direct onto the page. I've coloured the cat a little bit with some soft warm grey. That's warm grey there. What else did I do? And then I realised that we weren't still recording, so I'll carry on from where I was. I was thanking you all for your lovely feedback and comments and so on. Basically, that's where I was at. And yeah, I'm still having some trouble with my phone. It's supposed to download everything to the cloud or upload, whatever I don't know what the terms are, but anyway, it's not always doing it, and therefore when I'm recording sometimes I'm running out of storage and it's just so annoying. But anyway, here I am. So you didn't miss an awful lot. I just put a bit of colour onto the cat itself. I was going to do an orange cat, but I only found out recently that if I've got this right, that most orange cats are actually male, that you don't get that many female orange cats, so I didn't know that. And whenever I see these little cats, I always want to do them all orange, so that was interesting. But obviously this one, unless it was a little boy cat dressing up, I felt like it should be a girl. So she's become a soft grey at this moment. And what I plan to do is bring in some gel pens for all the details on the crown. I want to do, you know, maybe some glaze pens, metallic pens, sparkle, whatever. I feel like it needs a bit of bling on that one. I'm just going to use, at this stage, a dark grey rather than black for the pupil, and I will come in and darken that up later. I just feel sometimes that black itself can be a bit too dark, and I'm just going to do that for now, just so that it gives us an idea of what the eyes are going to look like. So that was a dark warm grey that I used there. And also I need to darken the inside of the mouth here. That's always a bit disconcerting when they've got a gaping mouth that looks weird as well. So that's that done. Now I'm going to go on to here. I want some gold and bling and different stuff on the card as well, I think. I'm going to leave that quite washy at this stage. We'll do some background and we'll do these rose bushes and so on, and then I'll decide what else I'm going to do. So I might just bring back the watercolour set. I'm just going to dry out some of these little wells on my palette here and use those. If I was better organised, I would have had some extra clean palettes here, because I do have other palettes, but I don't really enjoy working this way with palettes an awful lot anymore. So I'm only at this stage going to do small areas with it, because with my space limitations and so on, I'm not enjoying any sort of mess and clean up at the moment, especially because of where I am at the moment in terms of health issues. I'm going to clean this off while I'm at it as well. We'll start afresh. yeah, I just feel like if I had my nice big work table that I used to have in my craft room, that was really enjoyable. I used to like spreading everything out. So what I've got there is a couple of different greens, and I'm going to mess around with those. Just cleaning the brush off. And I need a lighter green there as well. So we'll get started with those. That was out of that little pocket box set there. Yeah, I don't want to come across all negative. I try not to do negative videos for you guys, because I feel like, you know, we come to YouTube for colouring, and the chit chat and everything's nice, but you don't want to hear someone whinging all the time. But I really am feeling out of sorts at the moment, so when it comes to colouring, I just need simple, easy, quick results, a bit of satisfaction and enjoyment out of what I'm doing. I don't want clean up, I don't want mess, I don't want too many things out. I really want simplicity. And when I used to have my little art space, it was great because I could just leave everything on the table, walk away, and I didn't even have to shut the door, because the way that my house is set up, the room that I was using for my little craft cum studio, it was situated so that you couldn't really see that mess unless you walked right into the room. So coming in and out of the house and so on, the room's right at the front of the house. But coming in and out of the house and so on, you didn't see any of that mess. It was just all contained. And if I was really worried about it, I could just close the door. But I don't have that luxury at the moment. You know, it just isn't happening for me. And if I want to enjoy these art supplies for what they can do for me. I don't want to feel hindered by them. And I certainly don't want to get negative connotations or give negative connotations about something just because I'm struggling with my working circumstances at the moment, because that's not a true indication of what these things are capable, you know, of doing, of creating, or what I'm capable of creating with them. So yeah, it's just all a bit messy at the moment. I really shouldn't keep harping on about it, but it just is what it is. And I am looking forward to the day where I might get my own dedicated space back though, and I can let loose with some of this stuff again and just really enjoy using it in the way that I used to. Okay, so what I'm trying to remind myself of here is that this is watercolour. And watercolour traditionally is light and airy. And so I'm not looking for saturated, I'm not looking for heavy opaqueness. I'm looking for nice, clean, bright colours that are fun. And, you know, they're translucent. You've got the shine of the paper coming through. Basically, the best words that I can think of to describe watercolour that way is clean. You want clean colours. You don't want to muddy and dirty the colours. And this is a good example here where it's lighter. You've got the white of the paper coming through. You can still, you know, play around a bit with different effects and so on, but I certainly don't want it opaque. That's not the look that I'm going for. So I just have to keep reminding myself of that we're not going for solid, we're not going for saturated. That's not what I want. at the moment. It might be for other pages, but not this one. Okay, so that's that bit done. I might also use a little bit of, oops, sorry, all this banging and crashing. I might use a little bit of this orange and yellow. I'm thinking for the roses. Wow, that's vibrant. So we might just do that as a little base. And what I'd like to bring in with that, if it works, you know, once again, all very much experimental, doing it here in front of you, and it might fail miserably, but it may not. That is the iris out of the Koi colouring brush pen, and I'm going to mix it with that little watercolour set. Because the set itself doesn't really have a pink, it has some deep reds, but they're not really as sort of vibrant pink as what this is. So I'm just going to let that all blend together as well. I'm just trying to keep an eye on things that you're still recording. It's very frustrating when things cut off and you don't realise and you're still wittering away. So that's quite a nice look, I think. I like that. So I'm just going to do a little bit of that over here as well. I'm just trying to be careful that I don't touch it into the wet green areas, so that I don't want those colours to, the green and the fuchsia to, or the iris to mix and become too muddy. And then I'm just going to bring some of that orange in there as well. So you can mix and match your, you know, your watercolours that are like this in a pan or a tube, or however you're getting your pigment. And I'm going to mix that together there and see what it goes like. So I'm actually mixing that with the brush pen as well. They're all water-soluble dyes and pigments, so hopefully they're all going to play together. Seems quite nice. If I was painting a nice watercolour painting for sale, obviously I wouldn't do this because light fastness would be an issue. And when you're selling work, you know, you should really be keeping that in the forefront of your mind, that somebody who's paying hard-earned money for your art deserves something that's going to last long term. They don't want something on their wall that is going to fade and basically become a blank piece of paper with a little bit of colour on it, because that's what can happen if it fades enough. Your lovely artwork will disappear. So all I'm doing with that there is just strengthening up some of this colour that's in this corner here, so we get a bit more variation. I'm not trying to cover it up completely. And I'm just wetting these other areas to try and sort of let it gently bleed out so that it blends on the paper and there's no real hard, sudden edges with that different colour. I want it to try and bleed nicely, so that's looking okay. And I've painted myself into a bit of a corner here because I do want to do something up here in the background, but I have very much painted myself into a corner here. So what I'm going to attempt to do, and once again I'm running out of plain water. I do go through a lot of water. I should have more than one pot here at the table, but I don't. And now that pot is full of dirty water, I have to be careful. So the goal is now, I don't want a blue sky because I don't want to introduce another colour in here. So what I'm going to do, and there is still orange coming out of that pen. Let's just get that up. Okay, we're going to put greens in the background so that it looks like this is a continuation of a lovely garden behind here. So it's not going to be sky, it's going to be garden. Now, be very, very careful if you're going to work over your page like I just did, that it's not going to drip everywhere. At this late stage, you don't really want to ruin your colouring that you've done. And ordinarily I would turn the page around because that means I wouldn't have to work over it. But of course, on camera it's more difficult, and I've really painted myself into a corner here. So if these rose bushes were dry, I would come right up to the edges, but they're not. So I'm just going to be careful because I don't want that green to go into the flower petals. Where the leaves are, it doesn't matter so much, but it's just really where that pink is. I don't really want to turn everything brown. So I'm just going to carefully. Now you can see by that bubble there, that is a lot of water again. Okay, and what I'm going to do, just for interest's sake, I've just picked up a little bit more of the deeper green pigment here from the palette, and I'm going to put some undiluted or, very lightly diluted pigment straight onto there just to see how that bleeds and blends. And we've got, this is a very much a bluey green, that one. You can see that that is really quite wet. It will fade, it will dry lighter. I need to come over into this corner over here, and hopefully what I should have done is put some washi tape down here to protect the page next to it, but of course I didn't think that far ahead. But that's what I recommend that you should do, is put some washi tape in there, and it will stop the page next to it at least getting splashed or any leakage onto there. And I'm trying not to go right into the crease of the book, just so that sometimes I've had the colour bleed through the binding into other pages because I've had it too wet. I'm going to try not to do that, which is easier said than done sometimes, especially when you work as wet as what I do. So once again, I'm just gently manipulating some of this colour away from the dry section, which is the playing card, and into the area that I want to look like abstract leafy background. And that's quite concentrated pigment there, probably a little bit too much. So I'm going to drop that water into it and see what happens. So I'm sorry for any of you that get a little bit nervous when I slop so much water around. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, what is she doing? We will soon find out. We will soon find out whether I have been completely reckless or not. So I suspect that there's going to be a part 3 because I'll need to let this dry. And that's going to take a while, given that it's a dreary day here, very cool and damp, which doesn't speed up drying conditions. I'm not liking the way that is pooling there. So I'm just going to encourage some of it to come down that way. And what I might also do, so I'm going to get a clean piece of paper towel. This has got quite obvious ridges in it, so it will leave some marks maybe. I'm going to take that excess off. And grab my brush again. And I don't like some of those, so we'll just play with that while it's still wet. There's a point where it starts to dry and you can't manipulate the colour so easily, and it doesn't have a nice look. But I can't really teach you when that point is because I don't know the conditions that you're working in and so on. All I can say is it's really trial and error. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using that, wiping it off on here. So that clean brush, I'm just taking some of that excess off and making it look a little bit patchy. Because I don't want bokeh or bokeh effect, but what I do want is a very abstract, almost like a camera out of focus. You know, when you focus on your subject and then the background has got that soft blurred out of focus look, so that you think that it's trees and bushes and garden, which is going to have some lights and darks. It's not all going to be one colour, remember. There's going to be light and dark. And the paper towel wasn't doing it for me with these ridges in there, so I'm doing it with the brush instead. I'm using a clean brush and I'm just gently playing with that and manipulating it. Because, you know, I don't want that solid look. This is not an occasion where I want solid, even blend. And it's a bit of give and take, like, you know, if you feel like you've taken a little bit too much dark away, then I've just touched my paintbrush into the paint there, and I'm just going to put a little bit more back in. If you're doing this on Amazon paper, it's probably not going to work. This paper's coping with it, but watercolour paper would cope with it, but Amazon paper's not probably going to cope with it too well. It would be, especially your US paper will probably be pilling up and tearing up by now. But this is actually coping with it remarkably well. Because I'm being rather rough with that. So yeah, that's coming along not too bad actually. What you're seeing in here is reflection of the light on the wet paper, so it isn't actually that light. I'm not necessarily liking those little dobs there. And I'm just going to show you the bottom of the page here. I'm not liking the solidness of that either. So just taking a little bit away from there. And this is why I fray brushes, because I don't just paint with them, I do all sorts with them, lifting the colour off and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that up for you, and I'm going to show you just how that is looking. Then I'm going to let it dry, and I'm going to come back to you with part 3. I'm going to be careful because it is quite wet and I have got paint all over my hands and everywhere. So hopefully you can see that is very, very wet, and that I've taken quite a bit of that back off. You see there the way that the paint is bleeding. So when you see it up close, it's very abstracted, very rough looking. But when you see it at a distance, it tends to make sense. And a little tip, just a small tip, when you're looking at paintings or colouring or anything like this, if you squint your eyes at it, it softens all the details. Or if you take a step back, don't get closer to it, take a step back and have a look and see how it looks from a distance. Because if you think about when a painting is on the wall in an art gallery, very rarely do you get so close up to it that you get to see every tiny brush stroke and every little bit of imperfection. But when you stand back, the painting looks perfectly right. It looks like it's meant to be. So sometimes we get a bit too close and we want, absolute perfection. But in reality, when you step back and have a look at it, it looks perfectly okay. All right, so that's Story of Precious Cats. That was pretty much using, grab my box here, the Koi watercolours for the background there and the card. And I'm using the Koi colouring brush pen. So that's all there is on that page at that stage. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I will be back with part 3 for you very soon. Bye now.